Take me out.
So I can only play like 15 seconds of this, or else we'll get like a strike on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
14. We're second under.
So good.
Got that. Yeah, one of our SCO videos got flagged because it had, I think, the awards dinner because it had some stuff in there.
Like background music or people coming on stage, or
it was some hype up music to celebrate and stuff, right? And it got rejected by YouTube because of that.
Oh, jeez.
Those YouTube algorithms.
Yeah. It's impressive that it catches that, right? That it recognizes the sound. Yeah. All right. Thanks for everybody joining today. Excited to have Shane Rice as our guest speaker. So Shane, a little bit of background. We've formed this group and have been meeting regularly to talk about just some practical tips for using the handbook. And so we've got even a practical tips handbook page that Monica helped us create. And Emily's been guiding us through, and some other guest speakers of, hey, how to do this, how to do that. One of the topics that's come up actually a couple of times now in this series is how can we, gather some insights into traffic and visits to our handbook page and understanding, how many clicks we're getting, that kind of thing. So I'd love to, reached out to you to just give us an overview. I know you've got access to some of that information, and you take us from here. I'd love you to share, and then we'll ask questions after that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, David. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share my screen and just walk through some of what we have in the Google Analytics application directly. And then we'll talk about some tools we have outside of this. We can, get some of this data into a tool called Data Studio, some places where it can be more publicly available so that you don't have to have an access request to be in the Google Analytics tool to find this.
And so Shane, I should have started can you tell us, who you are, what group you're with, what do you do your day job, where are you located?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So, I'm Shane Rice. I work in marketing. I'm the manager for inbound marketing. And I had to think about that because it changed this week, but it's not bad. I like it. And so some of the things I do are, help focus on the strategy for organic discovery. So make sure people can find us when they search for related terms, GitLab, CI, those kind of things. Then measure our success in that. And so we use Google Analytics to do that on the marketing website, as well as docs, forum, customers. Those all have the Google Analytics cookie firing when someone visits. And then also conversion testing, making sure that we're optimizing for conversion, converting people to hopefully leads as they visit our site. So I could have stopped sharing my screen when I did that. So sorry about that.
Well, thank you.
So diving into Google Analytics, if we go here, we can look at the behavior for specific pages in the tool here. So what I can do is, since the handbook, it lives in a very specific folder, we can just look for anything that has handbook in the URL. And so this is just for this week. Let's expand it out and look at, say, May as a month. All right, so we can see that for the handbook, we had 301,000 page views. 223 of those were unique. I can tell you this spike right here, I made a note of this in the tool here. We had a temporary spike in page views for about 4 hours one day when there was a problem with some redirects on the about.gitlab.com site. It was constantly refreshing the page, and so page views went up during that. That's kind of a rare thing, though. So anyway, time on page, really useful for the handbook because it tells you if somebody's engaging with the content. Are they hitting that page and reading through? Are they hitting that page and bouncing? We see to give you an idea, on the about site, it's about 4 minutes is how an average about how long somebody stays on a page. Docs is more like 8 or 9. So docs is a lot more like, in-depth coverage, like, going into how to do something. And so people are like really staying on the page, going through all the steps. So the time on page is a little higher there. I would expect the handbook overall would probably be a little bit higher than about on average. because, you know, it's used so much internally and people are going there to reference. But it could also be that because people are going there to reference, they go find what they want and they're bouncing back out. So some interesting things we could dive into there. So entrances, this is where, you know, we find people entering the site. So they're entering the site and going to a handbook page first. So I personally, the way I search the handbook is I use Google. So I do a site search where I say site : about.gitlab.com/handbook and then space whatever term I need to find, because I find that helps me find what I want a lot faster. So I enter the site a lot of times in the handbook. Bounce rate. So how often does somebody hit this page as their first page and then immediately leave the site? So they can stay on the page for a minute, whatever, but if they don't go to another page, they bounce. So that's what's counted in bounce rate. And then percentage exit, how many people leave the site from one of these pages. And then, so page value, so what I do with page value is I set any event that we want to track to the value of $1. And then anytime somebody takes that event, like, you know, does an event on a page, then we get a percentage of how often people are interacting with that event on the page. So this is kind of, you know, very high level, what you can see in Google Analytics, rather than just, you know, continue to guess at what y'all want to know. Are there pages you want to look at? Are there specific things you'd like to know if we have in Google Analytics? What questions can I answer for you?
Yeah, thanks, Shane. One would be starting with the sales handbook, so handbook/sales.
Okay.
And this, what you're showing here, like, is only, was this only Shane has access to this, or how would, like, our team get access to this information when we think in the future about something that we want to take a look at?
Yeah, that's great. So no, this is not something that only I have access to. This is widely available on the team. You know, if you need access to Google Analytics, you know, you can put in an access request. I find that one of the things that's challenging with Google Analytics is if you're not using it constantly, it's really easy to pull up a report one time and then not be able to find it in the future. You know, you've got that number and you know what the number is, but you don't know how to get back to that number. And so I like Data Studio for that reason. So while I'm sharing my screen, I'll share Data Studio. And this is something everybody, if you have a gitlab.com email address, you have access to all of these reports that I've got listed here. So let's look at self-serve metrics here. So I can go to a page and I can say handbook slash, it's not working, of course. Well, when it works, you can go here and you can type in handbook/sales and it will tell you, you know, only give you the URLs that have that included. So you can deselect all these URLs and you can say /handbook. And then you can select all of these. And now instead of looking at, you know, the sites across the domain, you're looking at just these pages for this time period. Obviously, there's something I need to do to fix this. These are kind of MVC. So until somebody says, hey, Shane, this is broken, I don't know it's broken. So if you find something broken, please let me know. I'll add a link to this in the agenda as well. So let's see. My clipboard is being weird.
And so, David, what would be some use cases for when we might want to access this analytics page?
You know, one from like a communications perspective, with Monica, she's looking at Field Flash. I think MailChimp already has some of that baked in here, but if we just wanted to see just traffic in general to understand things that she's promoting and communicating out, I think just in general, if we want to understand of all the pages underneath the field enablement piece, you know, how much traffic are each of those getting? And if we find some, for example, are just not getting any traffic, like we can say, all right, well, should we kill this altogether? Is there a better way to organize it? Those are just a couple, but yeah, open that up to the team.
Yeah, if I can, I'll piggyback off that, David. I think what you said is spot on. The other example I'd give of what you outlined is, wow, this page is getting a ton of traffic. Let's actually spend a little bit more time making sure that people are getting the best experience here. So let's say you have a page about pen sales and why clicky pens are better than screw pens, like maybe the traffic on it's so great, you want to add a video and maybe create more materials to support it and kind of judge it up based on the fact that it's being used well.
Awesome,
Yeah,
thank you.
And I would say too, as we think about, I know like Melinda on James's team is kind of spearheading like reworking the sales handbook, but as we think about that as well, we can start looking at, okay, like what are the pages, like what's the content like getting the most traffic, to David's point, and then we can basically like look at how those pages are laid out, like what's the format of those, like what's working well, and then go ahead and like use that as like kind of the baseline. So reiterating, didn't really say anything new there, but just kind of thinking out loud and reiterating what David and Emily said.
I actually have a question for Shane. So let's say someone lands on the /sales page. I know you talked about entrance points, but is there a way to figure out what was the page that brought you to that page specifically?
Yes. So Google Analytics has a limited ability to tell you, like, one step back, basically, where were they at before they visited this page? It doesn't give you a full funnel. There are some like behavior flow visualizations in Google Analytics that a lot of marketers like, but I don't find them to be incredibly useful because the data there is often sampled and not really gives you a good visualization, but it doesn't really give you sufficient depth to understand where people are coming from. So sharing my screen again, I will just show what this looks like for the page we're on now, what we're looking at. So we can add a secondary dimension to say previous page path. And so, yeah, so you can see here, like, the highest, previous page is an entrance for the main sales page in the handbook. But you can see, something's happening here where the page is getting reloaded. That's why we have the previous page path matches the current page. That, the people are on the business ops data team KPI index, hit sales from there. You start off in the handbook index page, command of message, field operation, and then, so we can even, enrich this further. So, hey, the entrance data is not really something I care about. I want to see pages that people are on. So we can actually exclude that. We can say, actually, I don't have, it's already in the previous. Yeah, cool. So if it matches entrance, we don't want to see it. And then apply that. No, gotta hit exclude. There we go. So now, it's the text wrapping's weird. Not much I can do about that. But you can see here, this is a list of, all the pages where somebody entered or hit the next page, the page we're actually looking at in Google Analytics. So, this is a little messy because we're looking at all the pages that are handbook /sales. So we can click in and we can go to, say, just the sales index page. And we can look at previous path just for that page. So let's do that same thing again. Previous page path. And then we will hit advanced, add dimensions, previous page, exclude. I know it's like riveting content watching me talk to myself while I do this. So I appreciate y'all hanging out, and you're all laughing on mute. I want to be on the record that everybody's laughing on mute.
Well, you provided the awesome intro music before, so you set the bar high.
Cool. Well, I'm glad I set the bar high. That's I'm going to the weekend on that high note.
Yeah.
So yeah, so here, this is every time somebody hits, handbook /sales, that's not an entrance. Here's the page they were on before they did that.
This is really cool to see. Some of the things that jump out to me are like the Sal job family is number 4 there. So it's interesting that that's sending a lot of people there. The KPI index is number 2. My guess, is that that's going to change now that the KPIs aren't on the sales, like the slash sales page anymore. So it'd be interesting to see if that drops over time. And then that search seems to be kind of the number 5 way that people land there, which is interesting. Anything jump out to you, David, or Monica, or Kelly, or Shell?
I'm also surprised about the Sal, job family link. Command in the message, near and dear to our hearts. So it's like,
yeah.
Interesting, that they're going from there to back to the sales handbook main page.
I was thinking the same thing, David.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what do you think about, I wonder if one of the actions you could take with this would be to look at that command of the message page and see what links are sending people back to sales. Because, we, without, click tracking, we might not know what links are sending people back to the sales page, but it's probably worth going through that page, seeing what people might be going back to that sales page for, and seeing if that's information that should be on that command of the message page.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah. I'm like going there now just to say. I'm at the top of it. Yeah, you can navigate back. But I wonder if
With the breadcrumbs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also trying to. So I'm grappling. Sorry, Shane. I'm kind of grappling with 2 things. So one thing, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to so I think the sales the sales homepage is super long. In talking to Melinda, and she's the DRI on this, so you're just kind of getting it secondhand, but in initial conversations with her and thinking about how she was going to approach kind of refactoring that homepage, we talked about the fact that it's just super long. There's a lot of information. There's definitely a need to break out that homepage into sub pages and have a cleaner homepage and almost directory. And so when you think about that use case, what comes to mind for me is looking through, all the links on the homepage and figuring out what are people engaging with the most? Is that where you would kind of start to figure out, I guess, what content on the homepage people are going to? Or I'm not really articulating myself that well, but I'm trying to kind of think out loud while thinking through how this data can help us, I guess, prioritize what people are finding the most helpful on that page and go from there.
Well, I think there's another marketing tool we use that can be helpful with this, and that's Hotjar, which is basically what it does is it can record sessions. It can also do click tracking. So heat mapping a page to say hey, people are scrolling down, they are, they're clicking on these links, those kind of things. I can tell you some of the things you can do that with too is if pages are valuable, but you kind of want to see what secondary and value, pages that maybe need to be highlighted in different places or something like that. You can exclude, certain, parts of the page from your test. So for example, when I test anything with nav, if I want to see, what's going on with the nav, I have to exclude sign in and register. Well, not really register, but definitely sign in, because sign in is always 97% of the activity. But if I exclude that, then the other things become way more visible. So that's a tool that we could, talk about finding a way to implement for handbook testing. We haven't done that to this point, but that would definitely give you some of that, more page depth as far as, what's happening with certain links, how deep into the page are people going on average, those kind of questions. We could set up link tracking in Google Analytics. But that would be a really kind of heavy lift, not lift, but it would be a really heavy solution, because now we're creating events for every time somebody clicks a link. And that'd be a lot.
5,000 handbook pages now.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And I was my second question was going to be, is there value on the Google Analytics side? Is that kind of time on page metric a good place to kind of look at for some insights, or is that, I'm kind of hearing Hotjar might be a better place holistically to look at, like you said, behaviors on the pages and how people are David, I'm gonna stop mid-sentence like we talked about earlier. Stop my thought mid-sentence.
So I would say that time on page is a great metrics to kind of group pages together. you can say like, okay, so based on what we're seeing here, like this is above average. So these are pages that are outperforming. What are we doing here that we can, do in other places? I would say Hotjar is a lot more for like, you have specific questions about a specific page. Whereas like, Google Analytics is really more like groups of pages. What can we identify from these different groups of pages and how we can use this data to help us improve those other pages? Because I will tell you, like, remember how we were saying the handbook in general, the average time on page is like a little over 4 minutes. Well, like for the sales page, it's like 5:15, which I just noticed while we were, having this conversation. So, on average, people are spending more time in the sales part of the handbook than they are other places. But even there, you can see like, the process version check, right? The number 2 page, people are there 6.5 minutes. We can, sort by this so we can see, the longest pages, and we can, refine that. But, like territories, right? Like people are spending 12 and a half minutes on the territories page.
Wow.
Like, like
on average,
that's interesting.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
on
great.
average, that's out of 2,191 unique page views, right? So like, that's, a lot of time on that page. Now, people could just be leaving the tab open, right? Like one person can leave the tab open and that raises the average, but that's really high for that number of page views. And that's really the biggest outlier I'm seeing right now. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and even if they're leaving the tab open, I mean, that still tells us like it's a resource page, right? So even, it still means something, even if it's skewed a little bit. I'm probably guilty of leaving. I have like 5 handbook page tabs open as we speak that have probably been open for like 3 weeks.
Is there,
Well,
can you subscribe to a report that just gets generated on some kind of regular cadence?
So Google Analytics has a customization area where you can create dashboards and reports there, and then have those sent out on a regular basis. It can be weekly, daily, whatever you need. So it's possible. Yeah, it's definitely there. I don't use it a lot. Like I said, I feel like the reporting, the customizations in Google Analytics are just not as robust as you can get in Data Studio. Data Studio is a lot more flexible in what you can report and how it can be visualized and those kind of things. So Data Studio is my preference. But yeah, you can, hold on. I've never looked at that. Can you? Okay, so with Data Studio, you can schedule email delivery with that as well. So that's an option with that tool, which would be good.
Yep. I know we're almost at time. I mean, for me, I think there were some questions about just what's available, those kind of things. I'm always of the opinion, like, let's not look at data just for data's sake. The biggest thing is like, if you've got something where there's some kind of actionable insight or a hypothesis that you have that's going to inform some other action, I think maybe there is like coming up with, hey, I'm really wondering about user behavior data. What can Google Analytics or Data Studio or whatever tell us for there? So really be targeted with insights that we're trying to gain. But yeah, I discourage us from just trying to go look at all the data that's there, because you can probably spend all day.
Yeah, you definitely want to start with a hypothesis. Like, people that are spending more time on average are there for this reason. And based on that, we see this trend. And based on that trend, we want to analyze these pages. I agree with you. I don't like to just say like, hey, this is great that this page is doing this. Like, let's, do everything like we do on this page. Like, that's not really the best way to use what you learn from this data. I would say anyway.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Shane. I think we're at time, but any kind of final questions or comments? There are questions from the team?
We get outro music?
Do you have a request?
No.
Oh. Hold on. I gotta find something now.
Something awesome.
Let's see.
Wayne.
Some Johnny Cash?
We're gonna get
How's
up
this?
the weekend, David.
Yeah, that was
Buddy
good.
Holly?
Yeah.
All right. Y'all have a good weekend.
Bye.
Happy Family Friends Day.
Okay.